So there seemed to be some confusion about operations below MDA and DA. And again, minimum descent altitude and decision altitude. That is, everything you need will be on at 91.175 in the FAR-AM. So Section C will tell you that in order to descend below your MDA or DA, you need three things, which one of them being the aircraft is continuously in a position from which a descent to landing on the intended runway could be made at normal rate of descent using normal maneuvers. 2, flight visibility is not less than the visibility prescribed in the standard instrument approach. In other words, do you have the required flight visibility that the approach chart requires? And 3, you need at least one of the following visual references for the intended runway. And this is where it gets confusing. So it says approach light system, except that the pilot may not descend below 100 feet above the touchdown zone elevation, or TZE, or TDZE, using the approach lights as a reference unless the red terminating bars or the red side row bars are also visible and identifiable. Now, how does that make sense? They're part of the approach light system, but why, if we break out of the clouds and we see lights, we can't just commence a descent to land? Well, this is why, or this is what that means. So we have a little picture here from the FAA, and let's just focus on this one for now. Approach light system with sequence flashing 2, and we'll notice that we have lights here, and here, and there. So 91.175 says that we can't descend using the approach light system. We can't descend below 100 feet above touchdown zone elevation using the approach lights as a reference unless you have either red terminating bars or the red sideward bars, which will be this one. Oops. So these are our red sideward bars, and there's a little confusion that if you break out the clouds and you see what are known as rails or the rabbit, which rail stands for runway alignment indicating lights, runway alignment indication, whatever, man, rail, which is basically the pulsating lights to the runway. And what that's going to look like is that you'll have a bunch of lights just flashing in sequence all the way to what's known as the decision bar. And it kind of makes sense if you think about it. Just because you have the runway alignment indicating lights doesn't mean you can commence a landing, because you haven't even reached your DA yet. It's 1,000 feet from your runway. But what that allows you to do, if you have them in sight, is you can descend 100 feet below your touchdown zone elevation. For example, your touchdown zone elevation equals 350 feet. And you have those lights in sight, you can go 100 feet lower, which would be 250 feet. But you cannot descend below that unless you have this guy, or unless you have a threshold in sight, the threshold markings, threshold lights, the runway end identifier lights. Notice it says runway end identifier lights, which is a reel and not the rail. The rail is the pulsating lights to the decision bar, while the runway end identifier lights are the lights that flash at the beginning of the runway. Also, your VASI, visual glide slope indicator, or anything that's any markings on the runway, such as the touchdown zone marking, touchdown zone lights. the actual runway itself or runway markings as well as runway lights. Any questions on that, just drop a comment.